generally leaning towards Oz on the Senate race and then leaning towards Shapiro on the gubernatorial race. I think Oz has done a good job at not taking too drastic of a stance on a lot of the social issues that...
Was that a concern of yours, that he was going to get closer to It sounds like Mastriano's a little too much for you.
Yeah, I think it's a little too much for me. I think like I said, I think economics is what drives my vote first. Mm-hmm. That being said, 2024 is looming large in all of our minds, and the recent Supreme Court decision is looming large in all of our minds. And I just don't think that some of those social issues coming from Mastriano really, I think they're just out of touch with people my age generally.
So what else do they have to tell you?
You know, if you're at the Oz campaign, you love this guy, because it was exactly the performance they hoped that they could convey to an undecided voter like him, which was, hey, I'm not Mastriano. I'm not the portrait of what's been painted of me. And I thought it was interesting how he made that distinction. By the way, he made another distinction about why he wants divided. He also said he really wants divided government, particularly here in Pennsylvania, going into 2024. He feels like that will keep the voting issue from being, he likes the idea of both parties having skin in the game of being able to figure out who counts the votes. So I thought that was an interesting rationale for him as a voter, taking in all this incoming on election denialism. And his solution is, well, Democratic governor, Republican legislature, maybe that'll work out.
And the governor will control the vote count and all of those other issues, which
is significant.
It's significant. And Mastriano, the candidate for governor, the Republican, was leading the vote count challenge here, as well as marching on January 6th with the protesters, as well as hiring anti-Semitic, consultants to propagate really toxic information. I mean, he has been so extreme and so controversial.
But I'll tell you this, it's funny, all three of these voters, they're not voting for anybody. They're voting against. They're voting, meaning they're sitting there, they feel like the two parties now, they're all independents. And here in this state, closed primaries, in fact, that was a big complaint of theirs. They don't get to vote in these primaries because this is one of those systems that they keep independents out of it. And so they really feel as if these two parties are putting nominees that are farther than where I am in the middle type of thing. And I thought that was very telling that these candidates were not seen. They were trying to decide the lesser, and they said this phrase multiple times, the lesser of two evils in their mind.
How concerned were they about the health issue with Fetterman? Because in talking to some local elected officials here, Democrats were saying, look, Oz was slick and certainly could perform, and the format was terrible for Fetterman. They never should have agreed to it, okay. But at the same time, Fetterman on minimum wage, on abortion, and other key sound bites and issues already on the air with the abortion commercial.
Well, let me just tell you two things that came from the panel that I thought were interesting, because I think at the end of the day, when it comes to Fetterman's health, it really is eye of the beholder. If you've had somebody in your family that has had head trauma or a stroke, you may view what he's going through differently than if you've never known somebody to do this. So, for instance, one of my three panelists works with a lot of PTSD military veterans. This was very familiar to her. She goes, a lot of these folks, they come back, they have some brain injuries. It's all there. They struggle. But he came across that he's healing. But it was familiar to her. But if it was not familiar, the other two gentlemen were like, I don't really know what he had. I couldn't understand what he was saying. This one gentleman was saying, look, I think I have an idea of what he's for. I didn't always follow everything he said. And it gets to this whole was doing this debate a tactical mistake, because here's the other thing it gave Oz. Oz essentially got a 1 hour free pass. And if you were to look at this analytically, I think he actually underperformed for the opportunity that he had.
Yeah, he was wrong on a lot of facts.
He created his own problem.
Right.
Fetterman never could put him in a corner, never could make him sort of corner him on some language for obvious reasons. But it was Oz that brought up local political leaders with abortion rights that essentially handed the Fetterman an opportunity to at least neutralize, or at least attempt to neutralize, some of the bad debate narrative. But let's all take a step back here. If a race is decided by 50,000 votes or less, then it all mattered. Okay. Other than that, debates usually only matter in presidential races. So I do think that let's not overrate this. It doesn't mean it's not a zero impact, but let's also probably take a step back and realize
And
it
it'll
probably is going to be
depend-
a huge impact.
It'll depend on turnout, on party structure, as well as the millions and millions of dollars now that Republicans are pouring in here.
This is either they see an opportunity or there's nowhere else to go. And I think it's a little bit of both. Like that New Hampshire looks like it's done. Pennsylvania looks possible. Look, if they can't, Georgia or Pennsylvania, Republicans have to win one of those two if they're going to win the Senate. They have two flawed nominees, but it looks like now they feel like Oz has done a better job correcting his problems than Walker. So we'll see.
Chuck Todd, we'll be looking for you and for more from these voters
great
at 4 o'clock on NBC News Now streaming. And of course, this Sunday on Meet the Press, which is always appointment viewing. Thank you so much, Chuck Todd.
You got it.